Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. It is Sunday noon. That means it's time for the closing line. I'm your host, Donnie Seymour. He is Kyle Purviance, and we are ready to get after it. NFL Week 3. We did the shows during the week. Tuesday, set the table. Thursday, polish the silverware. Sunday, we're ready to get after it. Everything is set up, and what do we mean by that? Inactives are in, lines are moving. It's a big show, and I'm excited, Kyle. Let's get after it today, baby.
Oh yeah, big cheers to everyone, by the way. It's early on the West Coast, so we wake up, we drink mimosas, we get nervous. All of our lineups look good, our fantasy lineups, our picks, they look great, and I'm just waiting for the first guy to piss me off, 20 minutes into the game. But I'm really excited. Week 3 is when I start to really ramp up my activity as far as bets and fantasy and all that stuff. We have some information now. Interesting week. Happy all the games are going to be played. A little bit of nerves.
There was a little bit of nervous, right? Little Atlanta, shows up. They're down a cornerback because he tests positive for COVID. Then they do that contact tracing. But let's keep in mind, the NFL is about their business and about their money.
Right.
This is Major League Baseball where, oh my God, the guy's sneezing. Let's shut it down for a week. The NFL says we play on Sundays. We will play on Sunday. Right. So it's good that'll be in for. We'll talk about that Atlanta game versus the Chicago Bears in just a few moments. Welcome into the chat box, Cody, Daniel, David, Steven, Eric, J-Spot, East Trenton. There you go. Hope maybe it's a New Jersey guy here. Chris Lippins, Troy Brown. Obviously, Alex is in the chat box as well. 100 people watching, 1 minute into the show, and we are going to blast it off. And if you guys know, here's what we do. Each and every game, we're going to go down, picks, sides, thoughts, props. If you have any questions in the chat box, let it rip. But the best thing about this, Kyle, 69,400 people have already subscribed to the YouTube channel right here at sportsbookreview.com. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Turn your notification bells on. When we go live in the NFL, come in that chat box and say hello. Also, if you miss anything during the week, because Kyle and I do shows during the week, Lee Martin puts out videos. You have a lot of great written content. Go to sbrpicks.com/NFL and get caught up to date on everything. Kyle, let's not waste any more time and get into it right now. Let's head up to Foxborough, 461, 462. Those Raiders, the 2-0 Raiders, heading into New England to play Cam Newton. Tough loss last week against Seattle on the road. Let's see if they can bounce back. If we're taking a look at the lines, opened up at 6. Now we're sitting at 7s across the board. Over-under opened up at 48. Now we're seeing 47s. Now, interesting part about this game, I like the way the Raiders played on Monday Night Football. I had the Raiders in that game. Didn't know if they would win outright, but hey, they played really well and deserved to win that outright. Now you're looking coming east, but also Waller was banged up, during the week, the tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders, as well as Jacobs, the running back. They are both active and ready to play. And there were some question marks coming in on the New England side when you had Julian Edelman banged up and also N'Keal Harry. They are both in. I think Cam Newton has a big day in this one, but we are gamblers. That movement from 6 to 7, specifically right here on game day, that's a big number to now cover because you're expected to win by double digits. Having said that, I still think New England gets the job done today.
Yeah, I like New England a lot in this game. And one thing to note, their starting center is out for today, as is James White. So for you fantasy players, a guy like Rex Burkhead, you could probably throw him in for some value. I locked in New England -5.5 on the pick 6. It's actually my double down banker at -5.5. I still like them over a touchdown. I just think that scenario, going late Monday Night Football, going to the East Coast, playing the early 10 a.m. game against a team that is – Henry Ruggs is also out for this game. It's going to be tough for the Raiders to move the football. Now, we do know the one way to attack the Patriots is to run at that smaller front 7. Belichick throws a lot of these smaller guys, like linebacker-sized linemen, in the game. So they're going to need a big game out of Josh Jacobs, and he was limited all week. So I like the Patriots. It's one of my favorite plays this morning. I'm happy I got it at -5.5. Of course, you're right. When you get to 7, it gets a little dicey. But if I can still get it at 6.5, I like the Patriots by at least a touchdown, and I don't think you're crazy for taking the -7.
No, we're talking about the Pick 6 contest. If you guys aren't in, it's free. Maybe you can't win on the overall prize. You have to missing that in the first 2 weeks, but you can certainly get involved in the weekly prizes. Last week I went 5-1, so I'm sitting at a nice crisp 8-4. Hit both my double downs each week, so looking to improve on some of those numbers. And as we stumble on these games, as Kyle pointed out, he does have New England in the Pick 6. We'll go over all those Pick 6 plays that we do have today, but also trying to pick out some sides and see what happens out here in the chat box. Let's see, Chris Lippins, Donnie, 88% of the wagers on Philadelphia and Cincinnati over. I lean under with a strong home trends for Philly. Cincinnati avoid going 3. initially during the week, now I stayed away from the actual total in this game, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes anyway. Just a couple quick thoughts on that. As soon as it came on the board, I was like, oh, that's an over game. It really is. But I sort of backed off that. I found a couple other added advantage I like in that game. But I sort of agree with you now on that under, whereas I was really a full go over guy early in the week. But we'll get to that game in just a few. As we said, 463, 464. Rams, Buffalo Bills, great game and a lot of line movement. You know, we're talking about at a soft opening offshore early in the week at 3. We saw this line as high as 2.5. Now we're seeing the bite back here on game day, 1.5 primarily across the board. I'm seeing a 2 out there at William Hill. And as I look and go over this game, I really like what the Buffalo Bills are doing. But are we a product here of beating the Dolphins and beating the Jets and now going to take on one of those heavyweight opponents, as I like to say, big boy football, out in the NFC West? The Rams look good. They beat the Dallas Cowboys opening night. They came to Philadelphia and busted up the Philadelphia Eagles. Score may have looked a little bit better than what it possibly could have been, so maybe get that added involvement. But I always look at the Rams right now. You're going into Buffalo, which would have been a hell-on-wheels stadium. And what I mean by that is rocking, loud, raucous, ready to go. Now there's nobody there. And I always talk about Sean McVay talks to his quarterback through the helmet. They can hear everything. That'll be an advantage. But also talk about the Buffalo Bills perspective here. Both linebackers back in. Edmonds and Milano are going to play today. So last week when you saw, Tyler Higbee go off against bum linebackers for the Philadelphia Eagles, that might not be the case today, but they still have capable 3 wide receivers, a great play caller. I'm still going Bills here. I'll take the 1.5. I'm going Bills here, Kyle.
Oh, yeah. I love the line movement. I wish I would have waited and bet this way. And that's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes you think the number's going to go the other way, so you bet it early in the week. But I like Buffalo. Again, the Rams in Philly last week and now to the East Coast again. Cam Akers, their rookie running back, is going to be out for today. So you're going to see more Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown. I just think the strength of the Rams offense is that passing game. When you look at one of the strengths, I mean, the Bills defense is strong across the board, but that secondary is really, really good. Yeah. Tre'Davious White is going to give Robert Woods fits on the outside. I like Buffalo -1.5 at home. I mean, you could sign me up for that. Another one, I don't want to give away too many before we get to the pick six, but this one's, I think that's part of mine. I can't remember. I picked so many damn games, but I like Buffalo a lot at home. If this was in LA, I might feel differently, but right now in Buffalo, I know there's no fans, but just the travel, everything else, I like what Buffalo's doing. Linebackers for the Rams make me nervous. Zach Moss is out for Buffalo, so now you're going to see a lot more Devin Singletary, who I think is a more versatile back. You're going to see him in the passing game as well. I like the Buffalo Bills quite a bit today.
Yeah, throwing it all over the place because you take a look at Buffalo on the season. I mean, if you go back to and again, we're talking about still the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets, so you can't really take some of these things with a grain of salt. But, I mean, look, it ain't chump change. I mean, they got over 500 yards of offense last week, thrown for 413 yards. And even in the first week versus the Jets, where you didn't have to do too much just to beat them, they still threw for over 300 yards. So you're looking at a hot start out of Josh Allen, which always the question mark for us was, well, he's not really much of a passer. He's not that accurate overall. Looking pretty good. 70% completion rating, and you add weapons like Stephon Diggs to that offense. It is now explosive, and that's why I like him. I took him in the pick six contest. I got it at -2, but the prevailing number right now, as we're looking live, -1.5. There's still some 2s floating out there, but that looks like that's what the direction is. On the total in that game, opened up at 45 and now sits, as high as 47 at William Hill, but mostly 46.5 in that range. I can also see it going over. And again, you'll hear me talk about this a lot when me and Kyle do shows. It's about just keeping a simplistic attitude, saying, is this game more likely to say 17-14 range, or is this more likely to be like, that 24-21, 27-24 range is the final score? So I think both of these offenses can get into the 20s, so that figures into a 45 and a 6. Do I love the over? No, I don't. But I can't see this game, honestly, 21-17. I just don't see it, Kyle.
Yeah, no, me neither. Both these offenses very competent. You're going to see good play calling, decent quarterback play. I think you'll see really good quarterback play out of Josh Allen. And I just want to address Daniel in the chat. Before you make that bet, Jimmy G was ruled out quite a while back. It is going to be Nick Mullins today, so do not make that Jordan Reed touchdown prop, even though Jordan Reed's probably fine today. But just so you know, no Jimmy G. So if that's the way you're leaning on betting, Jimmy G is out. But no, I like the Buffalo Bills. I am leaning the over in this game. I didn't personally put my money on that, but if I had the proverbial gun to my head, I would take the over because you're right. 27-24 makes a lot of sense in this game.
That's just the way I say it. Like, I don't think if it would be very surprising if we didn't get some offense, because you're talking about two explosive offenses, the capabilities. You have wide receivers on both sides. You have fast running backs. Jared Goff, not the athlete that Josh Allen is, but still, you have competent players out there, and they should be able to get some points. That's a fun one to watch. If you're just looking out there, I'm not going to bet a game. That's one you definitely should be interested in. Here's one of the games which is really puzzling. Now, not from a gambling perspective. We've been in this business a long time. You're going to see lines like this and they scratch your head initially. Houston versus Pittsburgh, right? Big Ben, 2-0 in the season. They're at home. Deshaun Watson and Texans, we laugh at him in the offseason. They trade away DeAndre Hopkins. He's on fire out in Arizona. The offense seems a little bit sluggish. Now you're going up against a defense that really gets after the quarterback. And you have a quarterback that, yes, is athletic, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, but he holds it long. So you're anticipating, 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks out of the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. So if that comes to fruition, how the heck can you go against the Pittsburgh Steelers? But yet here we go. Opens up at 5.5. I'm looking on game day, which was hanging at 4s, for the past 24 to 48 hours. Now we're seeing 3.5s on the board. You're also talking about Kenny Stills banged up in this football game. Duke Johnson's not going to play, so you don't get that added bonus of that nice little satellite back that you can dump the football down to and can make some plays. But yet this line still goes lower. Initially in the week, I look at this and I'm like, I probably want to take Houston in the spot. But it's week 3. I think there's better options for me out on the table. And when I look at this game overall, I don't want to be the person that's like, why did I do this to myself? Like, why did I take Houston? Pittsburgh is the better team. They end up winning, 24-17. They cover. And you go, I knew I outsmarted myself in this one. But that line is dropping for a reason. Are we overvaluing the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or are we undervaluing Houston, saying, hey, Donnie, they played the Chiefs. They played the Ravens. What did you want them to do? But now they're going up and playing the Cincinnati Bengals. You're getting another huge roundhouse from a good football team.
Yeah, no, I like Pittsburgh, and we talked about this on our show on Thursday. Ben Roethlisberger is so much better at home. That offense, fans or not, that offense, that quarterback plays so much better at home. It looks like he's starting to come into form. It was a tough game last week against Denver. We saw week 1 against the Giants, 3 touchdowns. 3.5 just seems like a small number to me. And I know earlier in the week, even on Monday, all the money was coming in on Houston on the road. And I went back and watched both of Houston's games, and I know it's against Kansas City and Baltimore, so it's really hard to gauge. I just didn't see anything that gave me any encouragement. That offensive line cannot block for Deshaun Watson. Those wide receivers can't get open. David Johnson is not an all-world running back. The defense is absolutely abysmal. I think the minus 3.5 Pittsburgh, we're going to talk about our bankers later, so I don't want, but there's nothing in my mind that tells me that Houston is going to win this game or cover unless you get a couple of bad injuries. Even Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be active, so he's going to have his full complement of weapons. James Conner looks to be fully healthy. I like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh a lot. That defense is tough. Where's Deshaun Watson going to go with the football? Maybe Will Fuller against Steven Nelson on the outside. We sort of talked about that. That's maybe the one weakness in the secondary is over on that right side of the defense with Steven Nelson. Joe Hayden's obviously very good on the other side, but he stays on that side. He's one of those Richard Sherman type corners that stays on one side of the field. I like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh a lot. And Lord help me if they don't, because they're in every parlay I got today, baby.
Chris Lippin says the Texans get crushed. Then we have out here, El Capo said the Texans win in this one. And then we take a look here. I got a DFS question for you in the chat box from Charles Barkley. Thank you for taking time out from your TNT show to join us today on sportsbookie.com. Who should I start? McKinnon, Himes? I'm going to assume
Nyheim Hines. It's got to be
McKinnon, Himes, Swift, Sanders, or Galladay.
Oh, it's Galladay. It's Galladay. Now, I know he's coming back from injury, and we still don't know if he's going to play. But we got a nice high total of 55. Kenny Galladay is an elite wide receiver. We're talking about a second, third round pick in most fantasy drafts.
But do you trust him if he might be just more of a decoy today, though?
I don't think they bring him back just to be a decoy. They could have brought him back last week to be a decoy if they wanted to do that. This was an injury that happened before week 1. I think Kenny Galladay is ready to rock and roll. He's going to be Matthew Stafford's favorite target. If you're looking for upside, PPR upside, it's Kenny Galladay all day long.
All right, we'll keep moving here. 467, 468. I like this game, and I'm going to get mad at myself because I don't have an official play on it myself, but I was monitoring this game all week long, and it came up just a little bit short for me. And I'm taking a look at the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Giants. Mullen's going to go up against Jones. And immediately when we see Jimmy G go down, it's not as if Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, I don't know, quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, teams, guys that mean really a lot to your explosive offense. Jimmy G, yes, a very good quarterback in the NFL, but he's not, if he's in or out, it doesn't move that needle like one of the big-time quarterbacks would be. So you go down to Nick Mullins, who, keep in mind, this isn't just like Nick Mullins coming out of college, his first career start. He's been around the block. He's played on really bad football teams and put up some pretty good numbers and was in part of that Mullins, George Kittle initial explosion here. He's played a lot, and he's played last week. So I look at this line, it's crashing from 4 to 3s because, yes, you see all the injuries. The whole San Francisco defense seems to be out. But the part I was trying to isolate here is you have a lot of running backs that are out, home run hitters, Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, two guys that if they get the edge, they're gone. They're not going to be in this game, but you still have some speed at running back. The only problem I have is you're a little bit thin at wide receiver and some of those veteran guys, and obviously George Kittle is out. But every bit of me keeps on staring at this team total for the San Francisco 49ers of like 22.5, 23.5, saying, why can't they get to 24 here? I'm like one running back short from firing it away because I don't think it's that big of a downstep from Garoppolo going to Mullins. But how, if we get one more injury at running back or Brandon Ayuk comes into the game and he gets dinged up, what are you really looking for from an offensive perspective from San Francisco? I still think that Kyle Shanahan offense and the whole scheme of it should put up points. I mean, I had the Giants last week on the road getting 5.5. They almost put off a miracle at the end, but they were getting slaughtered. I still think San Francisco is the play in this game. I still do.
Yeah, me too, and I certainly hope so. I mean, you all know I'm a 49er fan. For an early game in this division, it's as close to a must-win as you could possibly get to. You just can't go 1-2 in the NFC West and in that whole conference. And I know we got the extra playoff team, et cetera. But I actually do like the 49ers. I was leaning Giants earlier in the week, and that was probably just my pessimistic fandom. But you're right. They're just going to be better coached. It's not like they're going up against an offense that's going to take advantage of all these injuries.
Down their two best players. The Giants down their two best players. Yes, go ahead.
Exactly. No Shepard, no Barkley. I just think the 49ers have better pedigree, the better coaching, the better scheme. Nick Mullins is an absolutely competent backup quarterback.
Yes.
He was not terrible when he started those 8 or 9 games for the 49ers back in
for a bad football team.
For a bad football team. And so I know, we don't like to take a bunch of road favorites, especially when they're down their top 2 running backs, their quarterback, their number 1 receiver, and their number 1 tight end, and their number 1 defensive maybe their 2 best defensive linemen. You can start going down. You can talk yourself either way on this, but I think I'm putting my foot in the sand and saying, I'm going to take the Niners. Me personally, I'm not putting any of my own money on this game, but I think if you were going to and you're just desperate to bet the 49ers Giants, I'll take the Niners -3. I wish it was 2.5. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't even mind teasing it down to 2 or 2.5. Just
I think it's value at the 3 spot at this point because you're right. 4s, 3.5. That means you're gonna have to go on the road in a place you're already mad at the turf, and you just want to escape with a victory. So you'd have to win by 7. So at least that 3 angle, you might be able to sneak in there with a push if they even do win the football game at that. But there's a lot of valid points you bring up. To me, like if I could have got like Raheem Mostert in this game and said, dude, let's just let this guy eat with a good offensive line, and they should be fine because the Giants defense isn't all that, great overall. I see the 3 number. I think it's cheap. I still think that overall system of the 49ers can prevail in this one. Over-under dropped, 42 to 43 in that range. I don't really have a great feel, but I was just short, Kyle, of taking that San Francisco team total.
Yeah, and real quick for you DFS players, you looking for props, Jeff Wilson Jr., do not sleep on this guy. If the 49ers get into the red zone, it will not be Jerick McKinnon at running back. It'll be Jeff Wilson Jr., and he's had some smash games for the 49ers. I know it's crazy. A lot of people may not have even heard of this guy, but don't sleep on Jeff Wilson Jr. if you're looking for an interesting prop, maybe an over a half touchdown. You can find on some books. I think that's an interesting bet, and you'll get some plus money on it. And if you're playing a millionaire maker on DraftKings and you're looking for a guy who's going to be 1% owned that could get you 15 points, Jeff Wilson Jr. could be your guy.
415 people plus watching live in the chat box. We do thank you guys for that. It's been great. Yeah. I mean, NFL, we do know is king, but we appreciate you guys spending your Sunday, early afternoon with us right up till kickoff. It's much appreciated, and we do really appreciate it. 69,400 people hit the subscribe button. Guys are awesome here. Let's keep on having some fun.
That's growing a lot, right?
Here. It has grown a lot. Look, when this is my 4th year in the NFL, and I always tell people I was pimping out like, hey, we got like 15, 16, 17,000 subscribers, and that's how it's exponentially growing at a fast rate. The Jalen in the chat box, a wise man once said, never bet a bad football team to be good. It is, but hey, if it was just to pick winners, that would be a little bit different, but somebody's going to end up covering these spreads. I don't trust the Giants in this game, so let's keep moving on here. No need to waste any more time on that one. 469, 470, another polarizing game this week. Tennessee Titans and the Minnesota Vikings. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming on Tennessee. But you do have the line moving in your direction. Offshore early in the week at Pinnacle opened up at -1.5. Now we're seeing 3s and 2.5s across the board. So again, that's a big number. You win the game 27-24, you can cash your ticket or you can push it. So shop around and certainly get the best number available. Huge movement on the over-under, and I do agree with this one. 45.5 now up to 49.5 across the board. Some 50s even poking through and showing their head. It's another one of those games where you're taking a leap of faith because I don't think the Minnesota Vikings are as bad as what they showed. And I know there are some, advantages you could take advantage of. Let's use it twice in a row from the Tennessee Titans. Right. I think Minnesota can score, but it's one of those games where I find I have better value across the board in some other spots. I actually like Minnesota here, but the same way looking at that Houston team saying, I don't want to be holding the bag and said, damn it, I knew Tennessee was a good football team. All they had to do was win. There's no fans. And of course they beat Kirk Cousins, who's playing terrible. And Adam Thielen seems the only valuable wide receiver weapon at this point. I don't want to be left holding that bag. So I don't have a play on this game, but if I were to play it, I really feel I should be taking Minnesota. But again, that's why I didn't bet the game and say, you know what, I'm going to give this play out as an absolute dime. Minnesota's in a great spot here because just looking at the overall line, getting 3 at home. But again, no fans in the building. Tennessee's the better football team. I don't want to left with the bag in this one. It's a hard one for me, man. It really is. Any thoughts on this game?
Well, you sound like me in divorce court 10 years ago. Yeah. I didn't want to be like, but the judge didn't like when I said that. Yeah. So, I had to clean up my language a little bit. But nonetheless,
you got to get a shave and put on a shirt. Yeah.
That's right. I shouldn't call her a bag in court. It's a bad idea. But, I digress. So, no, honestly, Tennessee's the better football team. And again, we're taking a road favorite. Minnesota has looked dreadful. And you got to think, before the season started, we thought it would be a 2-man race in that NFC North with Green Bay and Minnesota. We didn't expect them to be this bad, but listen, that young secondary, that transformed secondary, getting rid of the veterans, Waynes and Xavier Rhodes, has not worked out. That secondary has been dreadful, allowing the second most fantasy points in the league to opposing wide receivers right now as well. They lost their best linebacker. Anthony Barr is gone for the year. Now you bring in a team with Derrick Henry. Now the Tennessee is down A.J. Brown. They were down him last week. That number is just too small. Like if this was 4.5, 5.5, I might lean Minnesota at home to cover that spread, but you're finding 2.5. And again, go to sportsbookreview.com. You can shop all these books. I'm looking at -2.5 on Bet Online and Heritage. If the Titans win, I think it's by more than a field goal, but I feel really safe saying it's by at least a field goal. I don't think this is a 1-point, 2-point game. I think the Tennessee Titans come in there and run the ball down their throat. I don't know what Minnesota has to stop that. And you're right on the offensive side of the ball. Adam Thielen is their only weapon. Irv Smith.
Young Jefferson. Waiting for Jefferson. Basically the Dalvin Cook show. How many times can you screen pass the Dalvin Cook for a big
And they don't even play him enough. He only plays about 65% of the snaps, and they bring in Alexander Madison, who's a nice young running back. That's not going to get it done against a Titans team that's going to be efficient, run the ball down your throat. Tannehill's playing well. They're going to pass protect. They can stop the run. It's going to be a tough day for Minnesota. I'm going to take the Titans on the road, -2.5, even -3 I'm fine with, but I prefer the 2.5.
Yeah, no, and it's a tough one because your eyes match up and say, wait a second, Kirk Cousins has been a brutal quarterback. They don't have much. There's no Stephon Diggs bailing him out with a 65-yard touchdown pass. We'll see how it plays out in that one. But here's another interesting game here, 471, 472. You guys know me. I talk about Washington, the football team, and how bad the offense is. And I got to tell you, during the week, I was trying to find a way, not actually taking the Washington football team in this game because I gave out, or I shouldn't say gave out. I was loving the Cleveland in the first half, up by a touchdown at the half. I still think that is valid, but I was trying to work in a way to try to take that Washington team total because it's very low. You're finding it anywhere from 17.5, 18.5, 19.5 with plus money. And you say, wait a second, Washington should be able to get to 20 points against Cleveland. The one last straw I had, which will still be interesting to see how it plays out, is Denzel Ward is going to be active for this game. If Denzel Ward was going to miss this game, you would activate Terry McLaurin and say, you know what, there's probably a good chance they can move the football because I like the Washington football team defense. I do. But you have a lot of weapons for Cleveland. Maybe they hand the football for this game and try to keep it close. I still think Cleveland, but again, you're talking about winning 7.5. You got to win by double digits. That's not the spot I really like Baker Mayfield and Cleveland in. I don't trust Dwayne Haskins all that much, but I got to tell you, I was really close on taking the Washington team total over in this game because I do think they can get to 20 points against Cleveland. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that. This is a game that, for my personal money, I had wanted nothing to do with because I thought the line was a little long. It's hard to trust Baker Mayfield to beat anybody by a touchdown. I think if the smart bet, if you are betting this game and you're just insisting on doing it, maybe you're a Cleveland Browns fan, or maybe you're a Washington fan and you just want to add some, or you're in one of those markets where this is the only game you can watch, so you got to make it exciting to watch, right? I would say the smart bet is Cleveland -7. I would actually tease it down. I would just tease it to 6.5 and keep similar numbers. That way, if you do get yourself a 27-20 football game, you cover the spread. I don't like that even 7 number for Cleveland. It makes me nervous. So I would tease this down to 6 or 6.5 and get similar numbers.
You mean by points, right?
Yeah, by points.
Knock it down to 0 or 1, right?
Right. Well, that's what I mean. By points. But thank you for. See, Donnie's got to clean up my mess.
I was saying I was like, man, I got to start booking your bets if I'm going to give you one.
This is what happens when you start drinking mimosas at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? No, but no. But you want to buy I would buy the half point or the point to 6.5 or 6, and that way, this does feel like a game where Cleveland wins by exactly a touchdown. That wouldn't surprise me at all. That Washington defense is underrated. We kind of talked about that on the show we did yesterday together, where that Washington defense, they've got some upside there. But I like Cleveland in this game. That'd be the smart bet. Me personally,
it's another one of those shots when we take a look at taking the Chicago Bears and Mitchell Trubisky. You like them as an underdog, which we'll talk about. They're an underdog today, but you're trusting Baker Mayfield a lot to say do the right things all the time when you know that he doesn't do the right things all the time, and now you're gonna have to win by double digits, which means you're probably gonna have to do the right things for the entire game. Right. But I'm looking more from that perspective. 45 is kind of a cheap number, but I don't want to be on that hook end of it. I do think Cleveland's a better team. I think Cleveland will establish themselves in the first half like they did last week versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Got a little bit extra rest to get ready for this game. Healthy on the offensive line now. Denzel Ward with the extra couple days now will start. We'll see how long he plays because he is struggling with a groin injury. Let's head to the city of brotherly love. 473, 474. Joe Burrow and Carson Wentz coming to town. Now, with all the press clippings out there, you'd already think that the Bengals, A, made the playoffs last year, and B, are 2-0 and rolling teams, yet they were the worst team in football last year and still stink this year at 0-2. So in the pick six contest, I was able to get the Eagles -4 as a double down play. And it's one of those spots where you're looking like, I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are that good of a football team. We have to be conscious of who we are playing. The Cincinnati Bengals are a high school football team on defense. So if Carson Wentz goes out and stinks up the joint today and the Eagles can't score, the Eagles might be headed for legitimately a 5-11 season, 4-12 season. I expect them to have a pretty good offensive outing in this football game, being at home, nice weather. I think they can bounce back. Yes, you don't have Jalen Reagor. He's a rookie wide receiver, though. Still going to have Deshaun Jackson, still have the 2 big tight ends, still have a healthier offensive line, and Miles Sanders should really eat in this game. You're worried a little bit about that Philadelphia Eagles defense, yes, but Fletcher Cox is going to play. You get another week of a healthier, hopefully, Javon Hargrave at defensive tackle, and also mix him in with Malik Jackson. Healthy at the edges now with Derek Barnett and also Brandon Graham. So you should be able to get some pressure on the rookie. He'll make some plays. He's very fleet of foot. And maybe you might have to look at that backdoor cover because we're not talking about 4s anymore. We're up to 6s across the board as it's steadily rising today. Over-under is 46.5. I like the over a lot more during the week than I do today, but I do think the Philadelphia Eagles here would be the play first half, being up by at least a field goal plus, maybe into the second half, but I just don't trust that Eagles defense. And Joe Burrow, as we've seen, when they're down double digits in the fourth quarter, they're going to let him throw. He's going to scramble to make plays. He made 15 fourth down conversions in that last game. I know he took one on the chin with the Cleveland Browns. That's the way I see it in this game. It's a referendum on the Philadelphia Eagles because Cincinnati is a porous, really bad football team. And I was surprised it got down to 4, so I jumped on it right away. Now it's up to 6s in that range. We'll see where it goes from there. Yeah, I jumped on it at 4.5. So you got it even. Of course, Donnie beat me to the punch and got it at 4. Well done. But no, I got it. And I cannot log into the pick six because I work for SBR and change the numbers around. It's legitimate. I can't change it. Yeah, he can't change, even though he definitely would, by the way, and brag about it in the chat underneath. But no, I still like the Eagles. Even -5.5, 6, I guess, makes me a little nervous because you talked about it. They're going to let them, especially with a rookie quarterback, a team that's from behind. They want to practice these situations, right? So it's just good for them, for him to get that experience. So, hey, we're down 13. There's 45 seconds to go. We got the ball. We're going to run this offense like we're going down to win the football game. Yeah. Damn it. Square Kyle back at it again. Here I am. I know that's what I'm saying, but I like I like the Eagles. I like it a lot more at -5.5. -6 does make me nervous. I jumped on it at 4.5, but I think, and for you DraftKings players, fantasy football players, DFS players, Miles Sanders, lock and load, too cheap on both sides. He should torch the Cincinnati Bengals defense, allowing the second most fantasy points in the league to opposing running backs. They can't stop anybody without Jalen Reagor there.
You want to focus on those 2 tight ends, maybe a little Deshaun Jackson for that boomer bust upside, but Miles Sanders should have a big game. I like the Eagles today. I think they win by a touchdown, but I like it a whole lot more on those books at 5.5. I might stay away from that 6.
Yeah, because it's coming down to the end. I mean, Darius Slay is a very good, talented cornerback, and it would probably take a big chunk out of A.J. Green. I like Tyler Boyd on that angle from a wide receiver out of that, W2 spot. And then also, I do think Mixon has a good game, but I don't want to be left holding the bag. It's kind of interesting, the Eagles having to win by 7 points because we have seen Joe Burrow be able to move the football late and nothing. Look, if you have 3 minutes to go in a game and you have a quarterback that's not mobile, he's going to have to go, 6 or 7, dink and dunk down the field to get a touchdown, which they're pros and they should be able to do. But what an advantage is when you're still playing a soft defense and the coverage is good, where a quarterback can just roll out and pick that 3rd and 6 up with his feet as opposed to throwing for it. That's a big advantage, and Joe Burrow has been doing that early in his NFL career. Let's keep moving here. Half hour left in the show. 475 people watching live in the chat box. Let's see if we can push this bad boy up to 500 with you again. Thank you guys for coming in here, and I do like Jimmy Stan saying Square Kyle is back at it again. Sean MCK, Miles Sanders touchdown, get it at -110. I love that bet. I think Miles Sanders is going to be huge. And again, you're talking about me and Kyle do DFS stuff together. You're talking about Miles. If a team you think is going to be winning in the 4th quarter, it's nice to have the running back tack on an extra 4 to 5 carries and maybe some goal line action work. Let's keep moving here. I would spend all day on my Philadelphia Eagles, but we can't do that here. 475, 476. Mitchell Trubisky, Matt Ryan down in the dome. Big news in this game. Obviously, Julio Jones will not play at wide receiver. This guy, it's a shame he never could really stay healthy. And even though he's played a lot of football, if you're a DFS guy, if you're a gambler, every single week, it's so tiring to see soft tissue injury. I sat out Tuesday. I practiced a little bit Wednesday. I sat Thursday out. I'm a game time decision. It's so hard to factor in. But coming into this week, you thought he probably would be able to gut it out, but he's not able to do that. So then you see some of these line shifts from the 3s to 3.5. Now then the 2.5s across the board for the Chicago Bears. I do agree with it because I think Chicago is live in this football game. And it's another one I like to say the pressure's off of Mitchell Trubisky, not because they're 2-0 and they can afford a loss in this one, but you're not expected to go into Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't have a great defense. There's not going to be a big crowd there. You're going to play on a good surface, which Mitchell Trubisky is an athletic quarterback. He might be able to roll out of the pocket and make some plays. You have a decent core of wide receivers, Jimmy Graham at tight end, 2 good running backs. What I mean by this, you have one guy that you can hand the football off to get 5 yards up the middle, and you have another guy that you can screen pass or dump off to that can make those big plays. I like the Bears in this spot, but I also like the Bears to score in this game. So I'm going to lean on the Chicago Bears and also the Bears team total as well. Where are you looking in this game with Mitchell Trubisky? Because, again, as a favorite, I don't like Trubisky. I faded him last week, but he's outside of that favorite role, which I think he can play a valid dog here.
Yeah, and it's a tough spot. I'll give a shout out to our guy in the chat. Singletary or Galladay. It depends if it's non-PPR or PPR. Not if you want to be safe, Singletary, because we don't know if Galladay is fully healthy yet. So let's get to that. So Chicago, Atlanta. Now, the Atlanta secondary, not only did they lose A.J. Terrell with the COVID case, but they have a couple other injuries, and I can't even remember all their names because it's a who's who.
Allen.
Ricardo Allen.
One quarterback is down in this game, and a third safety is down. Right. Now, Kyle brings up a great point here. He's going to talk about it, I'm sure. You're one injury away from really and we've seen it. You get another cornerback down, now you're down 2 starters, and it can go downhill quick. But go ahead, man.
It can go, and you're exactly right. But I'm still feeling man, Atlanta, has there been a worse week for a football team in the last couple of years than there's been for the Atlanta Falcons this week? I mean, come on. After that horrific loss, and we're talking about a team that was dominating the Dallas Cowboys, who a lot of people are going to say are going to cover against the Seattle Seahawks, who is one of the better teams in the league. So if I just look at it in that perspective, and then we're talking about a Bears team that let the Giants get close to coming back from a 17-0 deficit and winning that football game. So now we have Atlanta at home. Their backs are to the wall. The first COVID test. For me, it's Matt Ryan, Mitchell Trubisky. Now, for DFS purposes, you're right. I like the Bears. I like all those weapons. And I like the Falcons, too, because they're going to throw the ball 55 times. I actually like the team totals for both these teams. I think you made a great point about Chicago's team total. I think they certainly get there. Fast surface, high-scoring game, extra possessions. Tons of tons of clock stoppages. Neither team's going to run the football a ton, but I still think Atlanta covers at home. I just think this is a must win for them. A tough week. I think they come out inspired. Again, if you're going to lose to the Cowboys by 1 on a last second onside kick, the one of the, when they just didn't understand the rule, wouldn't we be favoring Dallas over Chicago by 4.5 or 5 right now? I think we would. So I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons to cover at home. I actually like it quite a bit this week.
PSA, like I have a couple monitors in front that I'm watching like game time stuff, but I'm watching the NFL Network, and I don't mind when people talk about like models for the game, not girl models, but actual models. Cynthia Freeland is their like, I guess, stats person guru, but they go over every game, and it's almost as if like they look at the spread and just make it up right on the spread of the game and right on the total. Like, why is there never any outliers? Like, why doesn't she have like one team? Like I have the Browns scoring 45 today and rolling. Everything is right. Why even watch that stuff? Like, all right, here's the Chicago game. I'm going to break it down for you. It's 46 points. It's 2.5. It's going to be 24 to 22. And you're like, wait a second. Wait, come on. Like, there's no outlier ever. Like, it's nothing can be outside of the box when it's outside of the box every single week. Like, the Eagles are going to win the game today. The spread is 6. I look from the win 26 to 20. Like, why? Why does it always have to be on the split? Neither here nor there.
Trust me, you're not going to hear people tell you to play Jeff Wilson Jr. on those boring ass shows. Just a bunch of gas baggers. That's why we're going to drink in here, party on Sunday mornings, and give you some picks. Hey, we may lose, and you may get pissed off and hate me forever. Yeah. I'm cool with that. Okay, but we're gonna have fun and tell you our real thoughts.
Yeah, I would be so enjoyed if it says like, hey, look, Tampa Bay, like they're 6-point favorites. I look from the win 26 to 20. Like, no, can't like I think Tom Brady's gonna have a big day. They put up 45 points. Like, I would like that a lot more. But anyway, let's keep moving down here before we run out of time talking about nonsense. 477, 478. One of the quicker games we can talk about. Jets Colts opens up at 9.5, sitting at 12s and 12.5s across the board. Over under at 44. It just feels to me like if you're Phillip Rivers and the Colts, you're getting another breather here in this football game. You got a breather last week. And look at the Colts. I mean, Colts should be heading into this game and saying, no, we're about to go 3-0, but they dropped an awful loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, played a dead team last week, another dead team this week. Maybe Sam Darnold just stays upright. I don't really agree with taking 12 points, which means you have to win by 14. No. But if you're betting this game, you're taking the Jets. I advise probably not watching it and just like check the final score because this is going to be a really tough one, moving the football overall against Indianapolis. It's just a matter of what Frank Reich and the Colts do. So when I look at these games, he wants his team to be sharp in the first half. I think the Colts should be up by at least a touchdown at the half over the Jets. That's the way I'm going in this one.
Yeah, and that's what I would do too. For me, the only bet I made on this game, and we actually released that over at sportsbookreview.com on Twitter, I'm going to take a player prop bet. I think that Jonathan Taylor rushes for over 77.5 yards. The Jets should be behind. The Colts should be home favorite. They're home double-digit home favorites. They should be running the football. They allow 4.6, 4.7 yards per carry, have given up 140 yards per game rushing to their opposing teams, even including an 80-yard run by Mostert. I mean, Mostert had 92 yards rushing and he got hurt in the first quarter, right? So the only time I bet on games with double-digit point spreads is when I think the underdog is better than what people are thinking. That's not the case here. The Jets are freaking terrible. They're without Brashad Perriman. They're without Jamison Crowder, Le'Veon Bell. It's just
every active body is down for this.
Yeah, we got the Lego policeman quarterback. If you have kids, go look at the picture. I'm going to say it every week. That dude looks like the fireman Lego man. It's beautiful. So it's a prop bet play for me. We don't have to waste too much time on this game. I guess, like, if you're like, I have to watch this game in this market. It's the only game on. I got to make it interesting. Well, you want to make it exciting?
Walk in the park, yeah.
You take the plus 450 on the Jets to win outright and put like $5 on it if you want, but I wouldn't. I'm just saying, I don't know how to make this game exciting. I can care two shits about this game. I'm doing prop bets. Jonathan Taylor. The Colts are the better team. They're going to win. Maybe you make the Colts a money line part of like a 9-pick parlay or something. But we saw that that worked opening night too against the Jaguars. Like, boy, man, they're going to stay. Nope. Still got to play out there on the football field, but there's no real interest in saying, you know what, I can't wait to get on. Nobody in that chat box says, you know what, I'm tuning in just for the Jets and the Colts breakdown from Donnie and Kyle. So let's keep going here. 479, 480. Of course, that Jets game is a 4:00 game, which were they thinking it was going to be like a stellar type of effort to put in prime time, 4:00? Interesting. But Teddy Bridgewater, Justin Herbert going to be in. Obviously, all the craziness that went around. Tyrod Taylor getting his lung punctured, didn't play last week. Herbert played very well. Now Herbert's going to be the starter this week, and quite frankly, should be the starter all season long. But I have a feeling Anthony Lynn is going to do one of those. Tyrod Taylor's going to be out 2 weeks. Herbert's going to play well. He's the starter, and he can't lose his job to injury. Wake up. It's the NFL. Whoever's your young quarterback's playing well, you ride with it. You say, who's going to be that quarterback in 3 years? Yeah, it's not Tyrod Taylor. So stick with Herbert. But then again, he could play terrible today, and it could be warranted. You got to rush back and say, hey, he's still a young guy.
Now he's supposed to be winning football games because now he's going to be favored in this one, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm just going to see what happens versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And he played very well. Teddy Bridgewater coming to town. Obviously, no Christian McCaffrey in this game, but they still do have some really valuable wide receiver weapons. And also when you're taking a look at a defensive, Ingram's going to be down for this game. Defensive end, also another key defensive lineman down. Obviously lost Derwin James in the preseason, so maybe you can move the football here for Carolina. Tried my best looking at the numbers, but I was only able to come up like a 17.5 as a team total for Carolina. Would have liked it better if it was 17 or sometimes with 16.5 and a lot of juice that you would pay for it. I think they can get that 17 number, but I'm not trusting a rookie quarterback. I liked it last week because obviously he played well, and they should have won the football game if their head coach had any trust in their team, but he didn't. Now he's going to play that role as you can't just be impressive and have fun as a rookie. You got to win this game by 7+ points. I don't know if he can do that. In the pick six contest, I went Carolina getting 6.5 here.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to go the other way and take the Chargers real quick in the chat. Of course, you love Russell Gage. I mean, you like him if Julio Jones plays. He's targeted 21 times. So lock and load. He's in both my fantasy football lineups and my DFS lineups. Lock him up. Lock him in. Getting to this game, Carolina and the Chargers. So I had to go back and rewatch that Chiefs-Chargers game from last week because I'm a red zone guy, so I'm watching a red zone on Sundays and napping after 7 hours of drinking before the game starts. So I'm laying there and I'm watching. It's like, hey, that's a really good offense, obviously, in the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs that they played, and they played really, really well. When I started going through this game, I found Teddy Bridgewater over 21.5 completions. And I found that I think it was minus 115. I don't have it in front of me. I like that because I think Carolina's going to have to throw the ball a lot with Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. And so I kind of like that sort of thing in this game. If I had to pick, I'm taking the Chargers at home simply because you mentioned Melvin Ingram, and that's a big injury that came out, late last night, that he was going to be put on the IR. I just don't know that Carolina can stop the run. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They're the worst team in the league against the run. They have been for 2 years straight now. Josh Kelly, that rookie out of UCLA, looks really good. Austin Eckler out of the backfield. Herbert threw for over 300 yards against a much better Kansas City defense. So I think I'm going to take the Chargers at home minus 6.5. I'm staying away from the total. I kind of do like that prop for Bridgewater over the 21.5 completions. But I like the Chargers minus 6.5 across the board.
No, look, the Chargers are a good team. Overall, a better football team. Yes, I do agree with that, but I'm still in that old school mentality where I'm going to get these rookies. He might see something he hasn't seen before. And again, we're talking about a rookie who has to win the football game and win it comfortably, basically, to cover that line. That's why I went with Carolina. Maybe I need a backdoor cover in the situation. And also, if you're taking a look at the Chargers up 7 points in the fourth quarter, are you letting your young quarterback air it out? Are you saying, hey, look, let's be sensible here. Let's run the football. And maybe instead of punching it in at the end of the game, we get a 3 to make it 10. And then you might be able to get inside that back door going back the opposite way. It should be interesting to watch and see how that young quarterback does progress. 481, 482, one of those games we really think is going to get some points, 55.5 across the board, and that is between Detroit and Arizona. Matthew Stafford looks to have his complete complement of wide receiver weapons this week. That should be an added bonus for him. Arizona, I mean, they're down Christian Kirk, but where do you go from? Kyler Murray in this offense is clicking. You can't sack the kid. He runs wild. He can run for 100 yards. He has a laser beam. He's got a number one target that if you just leave him in one-on-one coverage, he is going to burn you every time. Kenyon Drake out of the backfield. What's not to like about what the Arizona Cardinals are doing? But then again, this line opens up at 6.5. Now I'm seeing one of the sharper books out here drops it down to 5. DraftKings in New Jersey 5. Bet Rivers out of Pennsylvania -5s. Some 5.5s out there, William Hill and FanDuel. So depending on where you're shopping at. But looking at this game overall, it's hard for me to go against Arizona, not because I'm saying, well, they're due for a letdown or, Matthew Stafford's really good in the fourth quarter. They should be able to score. But just watching overall for what they do, they're going to be able to move the ball at will against this Detroit team. We're not looking for a lot of stops out of Detroit in this one overall, which is why that line is 55, 56 is up from 53. I do think Detroit is going to score in this game, but when everything is said and done, it might be one of those games where you talk about the last team with the football is going to win. But there's no reason to believe that the last football team that just needs 3 points can't walk down and punch it in this game. I always like Matthew Stafford in the fourth quarter. If I can use a crystal ball count, say Kenny Golladay is healthy and he's going to be that number one wide receiver, then you're going to have a really running dog here with Detroit. But I'm not ready to say that yet. And if that line is sitting at 5, I'm still going to believe in Arizona here at home, the healthier overall football team.
Yeah, and I'm seeing seeing Bovada -6. So this is a classic case of you got to pick a number for each team that you would bet them on. So +6, I would take Detroit. I'd take Matthew Stafford to cover late. I still think Arizona wins the game. This is a classic game for me where I made this a money line play on one of my parlays. I didn't trust the points. I think this is a high-scoring game. I think, this sort of 30-27 game makes a ton of sense, and Detroit's got the ball left with 18 seconds left. I like the Cardinals a lot in this. Jimmy Stain, you're going to like me a lot in a few minutes when we talk about that game. Square Kyle, you're going to actually agree with for once. But no, I like Arizona to win this game. The points make me nervous. 5.5. I'll take the Cardinals. 6+. I'll take Detroit.
All right. Now, another polarizing game that we have here, which if you're just looking from the naked eye, looks too good to be true. But I'm going to tell you, it's probably not going to be that way. And that's 483-484. Tom Brady versus Jeff Driscoll. You say, oh, my God, this is really a mismatch here. Now, if we take a look at just the exterior part of this game, Tom Brady's still healthy. He's going into Denver, which he hasn't played well before. But let's also keep in mind, it's not a December. It's a different football team, more offensive-minded, and you don't have 80,000 people yelling at you in Denver. It's earlier in the season. The team's not as banged up on offense because now you're getting back Mike Evans, who already said, well, he had him the whole season. Not really in game one. Went up against a good cornerback, and he was on one leg with that hamstring injury. Looks like he's overcome that, and he's pretty healthy and ready to go. Now you take a look at the opposite side. Chris Godwin, healthy for this football game, cleared out of concussion protocol. He had him in week one, but he got smashed in the next week, obviously midway through the fourth quarter under concussion symptoms that week, missed last week. So he's going to be back. Still have Scotty Miller at wide receiver. You still have those two tight ends. Rob Gronkowski hasn't worked in yet. He's still going to be available, of course, and also O.J. Howard. A good offensive line. They should be able to move the football on Denver, but I think we're slipping a little bit if you take a look. Well, Cortland Sutton is out, and who's this Jeff Driscoll guy? He's another guy that you can faction or match you off with. Take a look at Nick Mullins for the San Francisco 49ers. Right. He's played about, 9 career starts, played in multiple football games, hasn't looked at overall that bad. If you look at his passer rating number in those games, it's routinely 80+. He's going to give decent shot. Athletic. You saw he struggled last week coming into the game against the Steelers. Didn't take a snap all week. Oh my God, Pittsburgh's coming down on me. They were sacked 6 times in that game, but played well in the second half and was in the red zone to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. I think they're going to be able to score points, but I wasn't able to, again, cross over that 17.5 as a team total. I think Denver is going to be live in this football game, but I do think Tampa Bay scores as well. So I think that's the case. I'm looking at that 42.5. I like the over in this game for 42.5 because don't sleep on Driscoll. I think he's going to be able to move the football today.
Yep, got to bet on the over 42.5. And then I also have I locked in Tampa Bay earlier in the week, and I didn't change much at 5.5. This is one of those classic cases where you're going to say, oh, Jeff Driscoll looked good against Pittsburgh, and this happened and that happened. And then Sunday's going to happen, and Tampa Bay's beating the crap out of them 28-6 in the second quarter. And you're like, why in the hell did I bet Jeff Driscoll and Jerry Jeudy and Deshaun Hamilton over Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette? And the list goes on and on and on. I'm just going to go with my head on this one again. Another road favorite in Mile High. It scares you. No fans. The weather is fine.
Yep.
I'm taking Tom Brady. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Bucks. I think they cover the 5.5. A little more nervous at the 6. But again, kicks in Denver are actually more likely to be made. So you don't worry about that 6 number as much. I think Tampa Bay wins by touchdown plus. I'm just not going to overthink it. I cannot talk myself into Jeff Driscoll. I just can't do it.
High 50s, 10-mile-an-hour wind, so no windy conditions, and that is perfect football weather. So you're not looking at, late December where it's maybe some snow or 22 degrees and a wind blowing sideways. And you're right, in Denver, if you're looking at points, McManus, if you cross the 50-yard line in Denver, he's got a good shot at kicking a field goal. So I do think we're going to get some points in this game. But I do see when you take a look at the 49ers with Mullins and you see Driscoll, you immediately just take it off your board. You're just a common gambler saying, I don't want to dip deep into that. But they are competent quarterbacks here who can run the show. And really what you're trying to base it off of when you're taking a look at Jeff Driscoll is it that much of a downgrade from a young Drew Lock? Honestly, I mean, Drew Lock's passer rating isn't anything to be, write home about. So you're not getting a huge loss, which is the same way I took a look at the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, I like Garoppolo, but it's not Aaron Rodgers dropping out of the football game. You can still run a competent offense, and these two guys should be able to do it. 485, 486. Where are the defensive stops coming in this game? I don't know. Dallas and Seattle, obviously Prescott versus Wilson opened up at 4. Now we're seeing, some line movements here. I gave out as my best bet banker of the week, the Dallas Cowboys at +5. You can actually get some outlets out here at 5.5 3.5s across the board. So kudos to you if you can go out there and get an increased number on that. Over under 56.5. You look at this game and you say Dallas' secondary is beat up, not that good. Lost Jones, obviously, the free agency, and they have some injuries. They're not getting home. And who cares if you get home anyway on Russell Wilson? He likes it if you jailbreak City. If nobody blocked at all on the offensive line for Russell Wilson, it wouldn't even make a difference. He's still that dominant of a quarterback. Big-time weapons at wide receiver. They should eat. Big-time running gate. They should eat. And everybody, you see the channels, let Russ cook. If you do, he's going to put up a lot of points. But who's stopping the Dallas Cowboys? 3 wide receivers that should chew on that secondary. And you saw, Jamal Adams, Mr. All-World, get exposed last week versus the New England Patriots in the pass game. You got 3 guys that are going to be running at him all day long and a sneaky tight end that might get some action as well, along with Zeke Elliott. I think it's a one-possession game. And if I think that, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys here. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I got the Cowboys, and I actually don't even mind the Cowboys money line as the underdog here.
Whoa!
Just bottom line is the Seahawks, every game, it doesn't matter if it's a college football team, if it's a high school football team, if it's the Bengals from last year, it's always a close game. Besides, I guess, week 1 against the Falcons. You could chalk that up to that. But no, I like the Dallas Cowboys in this on the road. Both secondaries are very vulnerable. This is a super high total. It was at 57, which is hard. It's hard to get behind. So for me, I'm going to stay away from that. I do like some prop bets. I do think Tyler Lockett has a good game in the slot. He's got the best matchup on paper in the entire league against Jordan Lewis in the slot. But then you look at that Seahawks secondary. It has not looked good. They brought Shaquem Griffin up from the practice squad to play some linebacker. And it's not making fun of anything, but when you have a linebacker that only has one hand, you could throw at him as well. And teams did that in the past. You're not worried about the interception, the turnover, the deflection. So I like the Dallas Cowboys offense. I think they cover. I don't mind the money line. I'm actually going to pick the Cowboys to win this football game against Seattle on the road. So I'm taking a road underdog here, but I like Dallas against Seattle. Square Kyle. There you go, Jimmy.
425. That is certainly not square, Kyle, right there. I like the way that game is going here. We'll see where that line ends up because, again, when these games get bet through and that public comes in for round 2 in those 4 o'clock games, some of those might change, might get some added benefits in those. Right. The night game, last game we'll talk about today. Obviously, we have a huge Monday Night Football show tomorrow. We'll be able to cover that Kansas City-Baltimore game in its totality. 487, 488. What do we get? Probably the most disrespected team in the NFL over the past, year and a half is Aaron Rodgers' Green Bay squad. 13-3 last year, got no respect, bounced in the playoffs by the San Francisco 49ers. Now you see them coming in, another 2-0, rolling teams, but yet nobody giving respect. And you take a look at New Orleans, had that nice win opening day against Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, go on the road, get smacked by the Raiders. Now you come back home, Drew Brees in prime time. But this isn't Drew Brees of 2015. He's certainly arm strength has deteriorated, and he's going to be without Michael Thomas yet again and look like they've really struggled without his presence. So obviously we think it's going to be a heavy Alvin Kamara game on this, but do you trust them to win it? Because we're taking a look at it, opened up around 3. Now we're seeing 3.5. So they're going to have to win this game, presumably by 7 points. I think they can do it, but I'm not rushing to the window to bet either one of these teams. Rodgers looks really good, but again, he'll be down probably Devontae Adams, or if Devontae Adams plays, he's going to be a decoy, half speed. You're more than likely just to sit him out and say, get healthy for the rest of the season. If it's razor thin. If it's 3.5, I'm probably looking Green Bay. If it's 3, I'm probably going to be looking New Orleans. Simple as that for me here, Kyle.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at as well. I actually hedged on this game. So I took Green Bay plus 3.5 on a couple books, and I took New Orleans -3. I don't mind the New Orleans money line. They're so good at home. And Drew Brees at home, 81-28 over his career. Aaron Rodgers, 46-46 in his career on the road. Both teams are going to be without their number 1 wide receiver. And if you look, an interesting stat that Schefter put out today, the Saints have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 100 straight games. The longest streak in the NFL. No, I would not take the over 86.5. 77.5 is where I got the Jonathan Taylor prop, just to answer that before we get off the show. 86.5 is too high for me. But I like New Orleans at home. And when you look at it, the Green Bay defense is not as good as that New Orleans defense. I think the Saints have a better defense. They're at home. You certainly give the advantage right now to Rodgers. He's definitely playing better than Drew Brees. But now you look at the complement of weapons for the Packers. Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sternberger. Then you look at the Saints, Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, Packers vulnerable against the run, Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook. I give the advantage to the Saints. I'm with you. 3.5, I take the Packers. 3, I take the Saints.
It's simple as that. It really is as simple as that. It should be a good one to watch tonight because I'm the ultimate Drew Brees hater. So anytime he loses or can't throw the football more than 20 yards down the field, I pour out a drink and sit back and maybe smoke a cigar. But that's the entire. This is what I like about this, Kyle. 55 minutes. We went over the entire card today. Gave out some tidbits. We're just going to recap real quick on our pick six plays, and of course, I'm going to give out my banker. I'm still going to stick with it, even though the lines changed a little bit. Dallas Cowboys. I have them +5. That's the game I'm going with today. That is a 4.25 start. But in the pick six contest across the board, I have the Eagles -4 as my double down. I have Tampa Bay over 42, Dallas +5, the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football -3.5, the Buffalo Bills at -2, and the Carolina Panthers at 6.5. What do you got in your pick six here, Kyle?
Well, my double down is New England -5.5 over the Raiders. I got Pittsburgh -4 over Houston. I think that was too easy. I got Kansas City versus Baltimore on Monday night over 54.5. Makes me a little nervous, but I think they score some points in that game. I got the Titans -2.5 over the Vikings, and the Tampa Bay Bucks -5.5 over the Denver Broncos on the road.
There you go. 5 minutes to spare. We're going to get you guys off to kickoff. 500 people watching live in the chat box at one point a few moments ago. That was fantastic. That's awesome. You guys have been very supportive of us, and we do appreciate it. We will be back tomorrow in an unbelievable Monday Night Football game. We'll be live all the way through. We'll come on the air about a half hour before the game to talk some prop bets. We like also some plays in the game. Then we'll watch it together. A lot of guests lined up for that show, so don't miss out any longer here at sportsbookraview.com. But we got football to watch today, and we got wagers to win. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. This has been the NFL Football Show closing line edition on Sunday right here at Sports Book Review.